Welcome back to this next video lecture. Okay, so our course is International Business Communication or Business Communication. So today we are going to study the communication rules. Okay, so today we will go a little faster than usual. So I have lots of things for you. We will share some very interesting things about communication rules. Okay, and we will talk about rules of communication. It sounds painful, but it's not. So let us get into it. So and before we do, so as usual, let us revise a little bit. I would like you to discuss what communication is. Why do we communicate? What are the different channels we use to communicate? How do we choose when to speak and when to remain silent? How do we choose what kinds of behaviors we should be having, and when we talk, what kind of verbal and non-verbal signals should be giving out, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of listening. We talked about listening, so I would really like you to discuss what the advantages and disadvantages of listening are, and once you've done that in class, then we can start talking about communication rules. Okay, so we will talking about what communication is, what it can do, why should we communicate. Today we will talk about how we should communicate, and you will say what is the big deal about it. I know how to communicate. I have been doing that since I was born, but I have been sending out signals. I know this case is happening with you. I know what works, what doesn't. But every time very experienced communicators go into new situations, everybody faces problems. All of us get confused, all of us fumble, just the way I fumble occasionally in this course. I know I like to think that I know a lot about communication. I have been studying it for more than 6 years, but I still get confused, and it's not the confusion, it is parts of the other things that have been happening around, lot of disturbances. So how do I decide what is the most appropriate way of saying things to you? Is how do I decide what is the most appropriate way of sharing whatever I am sharing with you through this portal with the regular students in class, who can actually pinpoint things and ask me questions there and then, and that is what this whole situation is all about. How do we communicate, and what determines the appropriateness of communication? That is the key word for today's discussion. So this lecture will discuss the ways in which we can determine the appropriateness of messages in specific situations. How do we decide what to say? When? How do we decide on the pronunciation of words? How do we decide what word will mean? What kind of word? Which word will mean? What kind of situation? All of those things. So let us get into it, and you will get more detail and clarity as we move along. Okay, so some examples of communication in a typical organization. I scan this picture from this very nice book on business communication designed by Pamela Angel, and I thought I would share this with you. So people in an organization talk about various things. We talk about teamwork, we talk about purchasing schedules, we have resources, we have customer satisfaction, all of that stuff. So all this discussion goes on between two people or more people, and let backtracking a little bit. Okay, so we talk a little bit about dyadic communication. In one of the previous lectures, I was trying to explain to you what we mean by hierarchical communication. I didn't use the term, but I told you when we talk to somebody, we tell them, when we are discussing things with them, we find out through in and through communication, in and through what we say, how we say things, we somehow get a sense of who is at a higher level and who is at a lower level in the communication process. For example, if I have more information than you and you want that kind of information, I will be here and will be at another place. Again, not in my mind, it is just a perception. This person right here is not really in a better organization, better bargaining position, and I'm sure you studied that in your classes on marketing and negotiation, and other stuff. And you see this also, a person who needs something is perceived to be at lower hierarchical level in the mind or at a more descent. I will not use, let us not use the hierarchical at a position of disadvantage as compared to a person who has more information to share. The same thing happens in communication. It is the content and relational control aspect of the exchange of the said message, which means that when we talk to each other, one is the position of advantage and disadvantage. The other is that a person in a position of advantage by way of having more information, that this person has more control over the whole situation. So the person has some information that other person needs, and the person up some location doesn't want to share that information with that another person, but the person really needs the information that other person at a higher level has, or this specific information that the person of some at particular location. So as the person up here as a higher control over the whole situation, your teachers, I clear to have information about communication. I claim to have more knowledge about communication than the people who are sitting there and listening to the lecture. Of course, not the faculty who are reviewing this lecture, but the students who are listening to this lecture probably do not have the amount of information that I have, and because of that I am in a position of a more control than the people who have lesser information. I can choose what kind of information to give you, how much information to give, how much not give you, that is in my hands. And if I choose not to share all the information I have with you, there is no way that you can actually get that information out of me. So that is what happens in the complementary interaction. Somebody appear has some information, somebody appear has some information, and this person is just complementing. How? By the way, see here, I will add here, I am giving you a example. Okay, I will explain it. See here, by the way, here this example is given here in first. By the way, what's the status of that memo you are writing for me? Is it ready to go out? Then subordinate says yes, it's done and ready for your review. Okay, so I submit to you having disadvantage over me. That is what this person up down here is symmetrical interaction here. Okay, is the symmetrical interaction is the manager says, by the way, what is the status of that memo you are writing for me? Is it ready to go out? And I come up here and say, of course it is or you actually ready to read it. So I have come up here, you are asking me a question, I have information, yes it is, but you are going to read it or not. So I come up and this is symmetrical. I am talking to you on the same level, and this is what happens in dyadic communication. Okay, I mean, at same level if you communicate, that is called your dyadic communication. And to get to negotiate these levels of communication, we need to follow certain rules and decide what is appropriate and what is not, and then send out messages accordingly. Okay, so that is called here dyadic communication. Okay, so next slide we will discuss about that is the nature of language. And first point is here, that is symbolic. So symbolic, we use symbols to interact with each other. We use different signals to interact with each other. As you saw in that, you might have seen that in the clip of Helen Keller, that movie clip, Helen Keller, her system of symbols was very different from the system of symbols we normally use. She was born with all her faulty functioning, and then she became sick and at a very earlier age, but she was still in front. She lost her sight and hearing too. So very, very important channels of the reception of different signals coming it as from our environment. As you know, Helen Keller was deaf and blind, although she developed her style to receive the information, receive the message and communicate with the people. Okay, And so she did learn to communicate, but what she used for communication was different. The way she said the same words we say was different, and the way she learned to say them was different. When we say something, we hear it in our heads before we speak it out. That is the role of intrapersonal communication in our interaction. And I'm talking about that in communication rules is that the person for that is that we get a chance to verify whatever we are saying by way of hearing it first. So when we write something, we read it on paper before we send it out. We practice in our heads, then we write it down, and we have a chance to revise it. And so we do it symbolically. What does this mean to me? It is subjective. We interpret in different context. It is rule governed, and today I will not talk very much about this. Okay, so that is about the uh, symbolic and subjective and rules govern for it. But phonological rules, hmm, rules are governed there, and those are phonological rules, pragmatic rules. Okay, so see here phonological rules. Phonological rules govern how sounds are combined to form words. Whatever I am saying could be something, could be just noise to somebody who doesn't understand English, could be noise to somebody who is not familiar with the kind of accent I am using. But for somebody who understands the accent, who understands the language, whatever I am saying hopefully means something, and hopefully is something that they can use. Okay, so on the note, let us get back to our boring theoretical knowledge, that is think about this play, the clip, again figure out what names of these different people, where, and and figure out how phonological rules on the one hand can be very insightful, can help us figure out what we people are, I mean not really insightful, they are very useful. On the other hand, they can create some problems also, and that is what we saw in the clip of that Helen Keller, or that movie of King's Speech. Okay, so next is that syntactic rules. So syntactic rules govern the way symbols can be arranged. How should you talk to people? Where should the words be placed in relation to each other? How you should integrate verbal and non-verbal signals is also part the syntax of communication. And pragmatic rules tell us what uses and interpretations of a message are appropriate in a given context. I will give you examples for all this, and I will let you work your way through. We have just seen an example of pragmatic rules in a second. So coordinated management of meaning is when we use rules at several levels to create our own messages and interpret other statements. So we decide, we manage the meaning at various levels. Okay, so that is the coordinated management of meaning. Okay, so see here next table. So pragmatic rules, again no offense to anyone, my disclaimer here, I'm not taking a, I'm not poking fun at anyone, I'm just, I observe human behavior, so my sincere is apologies. If anyone here is offended, these are just things we see. I'm not trying to stereotype anyone, we just have these observations in our environment, and that's why I'm not going to take the names of any cities or any people. I just give you some categories of people. Okay, so this is with specific reference here. This is with the specific reference to Indian men and women in the age group of say 25 to 35. Again, my personal observation, it is very likely that what I am saying may be applicable to other cultures also. So let us take the example of two people while having a conversation with each other. A male boss. Let us look at the last part here. Cultural archetype. Last part, that last left bottom left hand corner, say the cultural archetype is the cultural norms that shape members' perception then actions. And in relation to that, let me tell you, the boss is apparently man in his mid 30s, 33, 34 years old, belongs to a regular middle class family, has went to good schools, good colleges, belong to a very liberal, open minded, wouldn't careless type of city, then studied in slightly above average schools in India, and then went abroad, got a fancy MBA degree from a very nice, very well reputed college, went on a scholarship, comes back and has started making a mark, and he is now apparently the vice president in an organization. Let's say doing pretty well professionally, struggle, now he is enjoying the fruits of his labor. And another case is that there is an unmarried handsome, he is unmarried handsome. Okay. Now another is that the female who is a good looking woman from a slightly more conservative town, belongs to, okay, and she's not from town but medium sized city, but much more conservative than the city this person is the boss is Tom. So she is in her, let's say, late 20s, 26, 27 years old, has been a good student throughout, but has been told right from the time she was born that she will have to go and settle down in somebody else his home, as the wife, being a wife is a prime pre responsibility, doing well in her career is the second responsibility. To be a good wife is a first responsibility, and doing well in her career is the secondary responsibility. So her home comes first. She has to get married into a good family, and she's used her education to push herself forward. She has been able to he had married till now, and now she is in this big city where the boss is located. Parents have a reluctantly sent her, but I have told her to make sure that the family values are not affected in any way, to keep her value system intact. She is very good looking, very hard working, brilliant woman, did well at school, but still is part of that mindset. So that is the cultural archetype, and this is something that has shaped their own actions and perceptions of other people within their own context about them, and perceptions about other people in other environments. So let us look this, the interaction, the content, the actual words. The boss says, "You look very pretty today." Boss meets this woman in the corridor. She's wearing a pretty dress, brand new dress, and she's looking really nice. And the boss just casually remarks, very pretty, you look very pretty today." The speech act was perceived intent of a statement from the boss's angle. He's just complimenting an employee, complimenting as an employee. He says, he looks at a pretty girl, he says, you are pretty. The employee is a female, she's confused. Good morning, hello are expected greetings. You look very pretty today. What is the intention behind it? What is going on? And we will start moving in your head. Why did you say this to me or her? Okay. So do I not look pretty on others' days? Or is there something else going on? A relational contract. So relational contract is the perceived relationship between communicators. From the boss side, again these two columns indicate three different precisions of these two people. Okay. The boss perceives the relationship between himself and his employees as a friendly relationship in addition to a working relationship. Yes, we are responsible for doing things. We are interdependent. We do things together as a team. But in addition to that, you are all like my family. You are all like my friends, buddies, and we should be nice to each other even outside the work. We can have casual conversations, the employee, and of course, there is no senior junior because I have lived in a more open environment. So let's not make this organization vertical organization, and that is what boss may be thinking. Appraise probably thinking. Let us assume that he is. Okay. The woman on the other hand is subordinate employee. So she sees the boss at a higher level of hierarchy. I am here in any case. I am junior. The boss is senior. My promotion depends on him. My ability to move forward in my career depends on him. What not, and it depends not only on my work. It also depends on what he perceives me to be like. So, and that I am junior to him, and so I am at a position of a disadvantage. The boss thinks that both these people are equal. Yes, we are codependent, we are interdependent, but I am not going to shout at this person. If she doesn't do something wrong, I'm not going to treat like that. But this movement thinks that she is right here, So you see the differences now becoming more and more glaring. That is the relational contract. The episode is the here the episode is the situation in which the interaction occurs. Okay. From the boss side, he is appear it is just a casual conversation. There is no up or down. The woman thinks she has never said anything nice to me, or he really make such comments. He is usually laptop in his work. He is on his cell phone. He sees me wearing this pretty dress. What is he trying to do? He is a handsome guy in his mid 30s. The ideal possible match. I have to get married. Is it hitting at me? Maybe yes. And wedding bells. Hmm? Wedding bells are ringing in our head, as if if he's known to be a flirt. My God, I'm other on his list. So she thinks, my God, what is happening? And this is where things start changing. Life script is the self concept of each communicator. What the person thinks about himself or herself. The boss thinks I'm just a friendly guy. Everybody is nice to me. I'm nice to everyone. And as long as I'm nice to everyone, my life is going to be very comfortable. Now this woman is from a slightly more conservative city where rules are very strict. Hmm? You don't take to people of the opposite gender, especially if they are in that risky bracket. You don't talk to people of the opposite gender, especially if they are in that risk zone. Where you are the risk zone at this point is man who might be taking or who could possibly take advantage of her, because they know that she is in her late 20s. So really over the hill, as far as her family is concerned, her family must be desperate to get her married to the good match, and she is possibly available, and we can just flirt with her. And so that is what she is thinking about boss. I'm not saying the boss thinking this about her, but that is what she has been trained to think about this whole situation. And she says, no way. If I am going to be one of the women on of his list, I will have to do something about it. I need to succeed on my own merits. I have never done anything wrong. I have never done anything I cannot share with my family. And so I am going to succeed on my own merits today. It is fine. Let me see what does next day. Okay. And so the path for the pattern has already sort of, he's already on that path where she's going to look for a pattern, even if there is no pattern, and these are some of the contents of or some of the aspects of pragmatic rules. That means uh, really need to start thinking about when we are in a situation. We need to figure out what we are saying, what our intentions is, what the perceived intention, what do we perceive about the intention of the person receiving, or message that does the person receiving or message perceive about our intent. Okay. The relational contract, what how do we perceive the relationship between ourselves, and how does the person receiving our message perceive the relationship we have with him or her life script. Where I'm coming from, what is my context, what is my situation, why am I thinking the way I'm thinking, what are the cultural norms that govern what I think about myself. And these are the rules that help us trigger out or get some sense of our context in relation to the context of the receiver. And these are rules, if we follow, if we just think about these things, there are no rule. These are the aspects of pragmatic rules. If we think about different aspects: content, speech and relational contract, episode, life script and cultural archetype, my own or this aspect in relation to the person I am talking to, it will be easier for me to draft a message that is really tuned to address these differences in context. Okay. So next slide is that about communication rules. So let us talk a little bit about some more communication rules. So these are the pragmatic rules. We have content rules, which is the meaning that people will attribute to symbols or what a word will count for, and procedure rules, which is how the speaker will carry out the communication event, who will communicate first, how much communication may occur, etc. Okay, so uh, these things up to these things we have studied about the communication rules. We may again refer another information in this under this same title. So let us stop here and we may continue in next video lecture. So thank you.